we're not at a trade-off. We're not at sacrifices in order to do those. These will be net additive. In other words, more of this will happen in Canada. More of it will help build our economy at the same time as it improves our defense, and we'll get the benefits. The question is, as we move towards later in this decade, and depending on how the threat environment evolves globally, if we are moving to the higher and higher levels of defense spending because that's necessary, then we will have to make considerations about what less the federal government can do in certain cases and how we're going to pay for it. Those trade-offs, I'm going to give you false precision around this, but those trade-offs happen towards the end of the decade into the next decade. And we will be much, much better informed. And if I can go back to Steve Chase's question, the social license element of that, there's going to be a very clear and open conversation about that based on facts and based on what Canadians want.
So in terms of the spending on the 3.5%, it seems as though you're saying that Canadians should not expect that there's going to be a substantial increase in defense spending. Of course, not saying what you've done now, but those things will be coming much later down the line.
I think it'll be, look, one of the things we're very conscious as a government, and I know you were there, I think it was described perhaps by you as the most boring, and I know there's competition for that, but the most boring campaign release during the campaign, when we spent a day on defense procurement and how we were going to restructure defense procurement. And part of the reason we're doing that for several reasons. First and foremost, value for money for Canadians. Second, you do it was you, wasn't it?
I'll take your word.
And second, and you're in NATO. This is like really important.
I don't remember that.
And secondly, to have maximum spillovers, like benefits in Canada of that spending to get jobs and others. But thirdly, this issue about how quickly we move up, because one of the things, it's in anything, it's not just in defense, if you all of a sudden start spending a lot more money in one area, you can end up spending a lot more money on rising prices and choke points. That's part of the reason why we're cooperating more closely with the Europeans. Part of the reason why, we continue cooperation with the U.S. in the right areas, but also part of the reason why this increase will happen at a measured pace, or we'll try to do it at a measured pace, and it has that consequence. There you go.
Bonjour, M. Carnier, Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada. C'est quand même substantiel comme marche à monter en termes de dépenses militaires. Est-ce que vous allez demander aux Canadiens de se serrer la ceinture à un moment donné pour y aller?
We're listening.